He just The quarterly meeting of the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council will now come to order. I want to welcome everyone here. We're starting a new quarter this year. I want to thank everyone. Nice to meet everyone again in a different position. And hopefully things will go well, which I know they will. Will Ebony Haven please call the roll for attendance?
Ms. Avera, Ms. Banks,
Present.
Dr. Barrett Vecchio, Ms. Bazile, Ms. Bayhill,
Here.
Ms. Kosei, Ms. Crane,
Here.
Ms. Hagan,
Here.
Ms. Hano. I can see that she's here. Ms. Harmon,
Present.
Ms. Hyma, Ms. Jordan,
Here.
Dr. McKee, Mr. Piontek, Ms. Richard,
Here.
Mr. Rocca,
Here.
Ms. Stewart,
Here.
Ms. Tarver,
Here.
Mr. Taylor, Ms. Washington,
Present.
Ms. Webb,
Here.
Dr. Wilson,
Here.
Ms. Womack,
Present.
Ms. Gonzalez.
Thank you. At this time, we will have Ebony read the mission statement and the ground rules for today.
The mission statement of the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council is to increase independence, self-determination, productivity, integration, and inclusion for Louisianians with developmental disabilities by engaging in advocacy, capacity building, and systems change. And our ground rules are: members must be recognized by the chair before speaking, be respectful of each other's opinions, break for 10 minutes every 1.5 hours, discuss council business in a responsible manner, except as necessary, restrict the use of electronic communication, i.e. texting during council and committee meetings, silence or turn off all telephones, be on time for meetings, no alphabets and side conversations are kept to a minimum, done quietly and restricted to the subject.
Thank you, Ebony. The next item of business is the approval of the meeting summary. A draft was given to everyone on July 20th, at the July 20th meeting. The summary was distributed, and the summary will not be read unless requested by a member. Are there any corrections? If there is no objection, the meeting summary is approved as distributed. Hearing none, the meeting summary is approved. The next item of business is the chair's report. The executive committee met yesterday and has 3 recommendations to present to the council. The committee first received an update from the interim executive director on the new initiative included in the FY 24 action plan on the building advocacy capacity in education and employment. During the July quarterly council meeting, the council accepted the ARC of Louisiana's proposal for the building advocacy capacity contract with the stipulation that Bayou Land Families Helping Families and the ARC collaborate on the project and subcontract with Bayou Land at a minimum amount of $5,638.68. However, Bayou Land has decided not to subcontract due to lack of responses for participation in the focus groups for the SPED directors and community employers, and the ARC of Louisiana will carry out the contract independently. Next, the committee discussed the executive director hiring process. Council staff provided information on how the process was concluded previously and shared that the council decided to establish an executive director search committee. The committee decided to hire a recruit firm and conduct a nationwide search in order to fill the position. The entire process took approximately 2.5 years to complete, but it was slowed down by the COVID-19 pandemic and difficulty in scheduling meeting and establishing quorums for scheduled meetings. The process was also expensive. Therefore, the committee decided that they would rather promote from within the current staff, specifically the current interim executive director, Ebony Haven, instead of conducting an expensive and timely nationwide search. The committee also entered into executive session to determine a salary to recommend to the full council for consideration. Lastly, the committee discussed the council and LaCan's 2024 legislative advocacy agenda. Council staff provided information to the committee on how the LaCan Leaders and Families Helping Families directors determine which items to recommend to the council to consider. If you are interested in seeing the entire list of 83 issues that were gathered during the LaCan community input meetings, I encourage you to all review the documents linked in our committee agenda. The committee reviewed the recommendations and decided to accept them for the council and LaCan's 2024 legislative advocacy agenda. Therefore, the committee has 3 recommendations to offer for the council's consideration. The first one, the executive committee recommends that the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council hire the interim executive director, Ebony Haven, as the executive director of the council.
Is that a motion?
Okay. No, okay. I did say there were 3 recommendations from the executive committee meeting. Because these recommendations are coming from the committee, they do not require a second. After each recommendation, the council will take a roll call vote on whether to adopt that recommendation. Okay. So the first recommendation, I'm sorry, Mr. Phil, you have the floor.
It seems like we need discussion before we take a vote, is that right?
Yes, we are. I'm getting to that.
Oh,
Yes.
I thought you said we were voting.
No. So the executive committee regarding the hiring process, we recommended that from the committee to hire interim director Ebony Haven as the executive director of the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council. Is there any discussion from council members? Oh, Ms. Phil?
So I just want to say I think you've done a great job, and I definitely feel like is worthy of consideration. But I think that this council is the work that has to happen here, I think, is very, very complex, and I don't feel comfortable with not doing a search. So that's my comment, I guess.
Any other discussions? Jill?
Brendan. With, I think, and Ms. yesterday, but am I correct in saying without the COVID break, it was a lengthy process, like,
I would agree, yeah.
okay.
I mean, because what COVID did was essentially move things virtually for that search committee. So I think our biggest struggles were more of just getting quorums and the amount of work that needed to be done. But it is factual that did delay us some, and I don't have the specifics to be able to tell you we had to delay this long for COVID, but it was an impact.
And then, can I make another comment?
Yes.
I am a member of the executive committee and so with at 201, now that was the Senate bill not being proclamated that I don't drive, so I will automatically not be attending very many executive search committee meetings So when I did make this motion, I did put that into consideration and that I don't have transportation. And like, even though my job is part-time, I took off, like, I was out of town more than I was in town. And my mom was all 5 kids at her house the week before Christmas. So got another day to take off, so just wanted to think out loud and put that out there.
Who's that? Vivian, sorry.
I love our staff and I love what a wonderful job Ebony has been doing. However, I do not think she would be the best fit for this role. And I think it is really worth considering taking the time and effort to find someone who would be a better fit.
Any other discussions with Mary?
I was here on the executive committee when we did the search before. And it was very drawn out, but we also, during that time, we weren't just paying for them to do the search. They had a lot of stuff that they had to do. We needed a job description. We needed some background things done. And I don't want us to lose the fact, I mean, have we gone back to what we did, the processes? If we want to not hire a search committee, I'm okay with that. I do think it, as much as we went through before and as big of a job it is, I don't disagree that Ebony has every, the experience in the job, she could do it. I just don't want us to get 3 months in and then have somebody question our process. We need to go with a process that the council knows that we should be doing. Whatever it is, we need to decide the process today. And if that includes that we open up, and do, it doesn't have to be a search. You post the job, people apply, and you go through the process. That's generally what happens in most people's jobs. And so while you do want to hire within, I think that does give an advantage, but that's something that usually comes out in the interview process. Not that Ebony is not qualified. I'm just saying, after going through the heartache and the time and everything that we did before, I feel like we need to go back and make sure that because every time that you don't follow the previous processes or don't have a laid out plan, I think you get off track really easily and it brings it into question at some point. So I just wanted to say that I think opening it up and at least posting the job would be something that I would like for us to consider.
Any other comments, discussion? Cole?
So this was decided by the executive council. So that means they came, they met, they took out extra time on their days to come here. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't go through the process, but we can go through the process. We could do that again. We did that before. It took a year for us to get through every single application, a year. Putting that out there. And the person that we did pick, she didn't stay for a couple years. Ebony has been here and she was doing what other people up in the position was already doing. She was already carrying out the job and already being effective with it. So we could open it up, but are we going to have somebody that is passionate and already knows about what's going on in Louisiana? Because we had a couple applicants, 3 of them, that didn't even know what was going on, that hadn't been to a meeting, that hadn't been to a committee hearing, that hadn't been to anything. We could look at her track record. I mean, you could open it up. That's cool, but I don't think she's not qualified. I think she's very much so qualified to be in the position.
Ms. Melinda?
Yeah, so I was just gonna say, as being a state organization or state council, I think it needs to be competitive. Now, Ebony certainly has an advantage because she knows the work and knows the council, and I think that would come out in the interview process. But I think at a minimum, it needs to be competitive.
Any other comments or discussion? Oh,
Yeah, I think it needs to be an active search with, people who have done this same work in other states. Is it a statewide, federally established position? I do agree that the way the search company, I guess, what I don't remember what the right term for, wasn't the best organization. It may have been the cheapest, but I feel very strongly that, for example, when I retire from my role as director of the Human Development Center, which is one of the 3 legs of the DD network, the DRLA being the other one, that there will be a national search, and there should be. Again, Ebony, this isn't about a comment on what you can do or have done. And yes, I think you're very knowledgeable and absolutely, critical to try to keep you on the DD Council in a leadership role from my point of view. But I feel like to move the DD Council forward probably is going to require somebody with a lot of experience dealing with, state agency heads, politicians, other many organizations. I just feel like for the sake of expediency, almost sounds like, let's get a director and keep on going. I feel like that would be a mistake. And again, I would strongly encourage Ebony, if she's interested, to apply. And out of that interview process, somebody, I think maybe Melinda, somebody had said, if Ebony is the strongest candidate, then absolutely. But I think we need to really see what other kind of person who has a lot of experience leading a statewide organization should be in one of our goals to have.
Any other discussions?
I have a few questions and I'm new, so please excuse me. So if we were to open it up, with the new laws, could they be virtual committee meetings? Like if we don't have it all the way set up to have the in-person meetings about the search? Like with Joe's concern, could it be like a hybrid thing?
Well, there
won't
still
know.
hasn't been a rule that's been promulgated.
Okay,
So
we were not
running
sure.
into that same roadblock.
Problem. Okay.
Yes.
the other thing is, an interim, is Ebony getting a pay increase, or is she just still receiving her pay that she's been getting as before? Do we know? Let me see so much more.
Somebody on the council.
I'm sorry. I didn't-
I'm sorry.
Question.
Ebony, are you still getting paid the same amount as you were before you were interim?
No,
Okay,
Good.
just I wanted to make sure, and then, I'm glad, that we have different. But would the state agencies be able to participate in these searches? Or is that something that the council?
so the state, you're talking about the state agency reps that sit on there, they're council members, so
Okay,
they can sit on the search committee.
Okay,
if they so choose.
okay, yeah, and that's what I'm saying too, like,
They did for the previous.
they did for the previous as well, okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
No, mine was only a comment when you were talking about the virtual meeting. I actually had a meeting with our LDH legal staff earlier this week about the virtual meetings. And I believe the bill, don't correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think it was 25% of your meetings can be held virtually. And they said we can move forward because I have another council that I work on that we lead. And we are in a position to move forward with the 25% of the rules. There is some stuff they have to do, but they're not waiting on anything. And so to answer your question, we should be able to move forward with that meeting, the next meeting being virtual, if we haven't had one, of course, and it's within the 25%.
Yeah, I reached out to them before, like maybe mid-September, and they advised that we not have virtual meetings.
So what I would
because the
recommend
rule
is
hadn't been promulgated.
reach again, because they have explored it and they told me this week we can go forward.
Okay.
So you probably want to get that in writing, of course, but
Are there any other discussions? Jill?
I feel like now, and I'm hearing everybody's point, because I mean, like, all I want to do, I do, of course, want the ultimate goal for me is to have you as the ED, but also we need best practice. And I do want to follow best practices. It's almost as important. No, I'm just kidding. That's on record now. I'm gonna get in trouble. And also just throwing it out there without many names. I've had friends, both council members and staff members, that this process may have influenced them to resign. So I just want to know that in the past, this process has led to burnout, and I mean, I just.
Anybody else? Meredith?
I just want to really thank Ebony. Ebony has been to seat meetings, Bessie board meetings, critical things, the legislature that impacted our students with disabilities alongside Amy as well, and then Ebony and I picking up and, kind of exactly where Amy and I left off with conversations and meetings and staying connected. And so I agree. I think a lot of us, that Ebony certainly has a seat at this table and in this role. And so I just, wanted to really thank you, Ebony, for all of that, for the support, the work alongside the department. I think all of us are really impacting and moving work. You all are impacting the things that I do, that we do as a state for our children with disabilities in our schools. And so, I hear what everyone is saying too, and I just really want to thank Ebony and say that I agree that I think she has a spot at the table, whether we post. I agree. I don't think I want to see a lengthy process either, because there is something to say for stability and moving forward. And I think this council has a lot of momentum going. We had excellent conversation yesterday in our committee meeting. And so just thinking about that too, and the stability moving forward. And I know Ebony will give us that and the staff. And so I just wanted to put that on record as well.
I'll be reading something on behalf of the executive committee. I pray that you all consider what is being said and have an attentive ear. Dear council members, on behalf of the executive committee, it is with great pleasure and enthusiasm that we write this recommendation for Ebony Haven as candidate for the position of executive director of the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council. As members of the executive committee, we have had the privilege of closely observing Ebony Haven's exemplary qualities and contributions, making us confident in our endorsement. Ebony brings to the table a wealth of experience in engaging in systems change initiatives and capacity building activities to improve the quality of life of people with developmental disabilities in the community. Having demonstrated exceptional leadership skills and innovative problem-solving abilities during her tenure as program monitor and deputy director. Since 2018, Ebony has assisted the executive director by supervising various departments, teams, or projects, and ensuring that the organization's goals and objectives are met efficiently, contributing to the development of organizational strategies, goals, and plans, developing and enforcing policies and procedures that align with the organization's mission and values, providing input and advice to the executive director and other council members, helping to shape the organization's overall direction, assisting with overseeing budget planning, allocation of resources, and financial reporting, addressing challenges and solving problems within the organization, mentoring staff, providing guidance and facilitating training programs, representing the organization in meetings, conferences, and other events by interacting with stakeholders, partners, and other organizations to foster collaborations and partnerships. Her proven track record in assisting the executive director underscores her ability to further drive positive change and foster collaborative environments. Ebony has a strong history of servitude and advocacy. She has actively participated in various system change initiatives, demonstrating her dedication to improving the lives of others, especially those with developmental disabilities. Ebony's passion for advocacy and her ability to mobilize resources for the betterment of this community is truly inspiring. Beyond her professional qualifications, Ebony possessed remarkable character traits. She exhibits unwavering integrity, empathy, and a genuine commitment to the well-being of individuals with developmental disabilities, as well as council members and staff. Her ability to connect with people on a personal level and foster a supportive, inclusive atmosphere is truly commendable. Ebony holds an impressive educational background, having earned a Master of Public Health, Epidemiology, Maternal and Child Health degree from Tulane University School of Medicine, and a Bachelor of Science degree in Biology and Chemistry. Her academic achievements reflect her dedication to continuous learning and intellectual growth, qualities that are essential for leading an organization with the caliber and mission of the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council. We firmly believe that an increase in salary for Ebony is not justified, but essential. Recognizing her expertise and commitment through a competitive compensation package is an investment in the future of the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council. A fair and competitive salary would not only acknowledge Ebony's contributions, but also motivate her to continue her outstanding work and lead the organization toward even greater success. In conclusion, we wholeheartedly recommend Ebony Haven for the position of Executive Director of the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council. Her combination of experience, character, educational background, and servitude makes her an outstanding candidate. We are confident that under her leadership, the council will continue to thrive and make a meaningful difference in the lives of individuals with developmental disabilities. As you can see, there's no need to look elsewhere for a candidate. We have the best selection for the position before us. We eagerly anticipate the positive impact that Ebony Haven would undoubtedly bring to the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council. Thank you for considering our recommendations. Sincerely, the Executive Committee.
Before we go on, could you please identify yourselves before speaking so everyone who is listening can hear and you are? Ms. Sharon.
Sherry Crane with Governor's Office of Elderly Affairs. Ebony, did you apply last time when it was advertised for the position? Okay. Was there a reason?
I think the environment of the council, like the climate, I didn't think that I was the right person to come in to take over during that time. And so I didn't consider the position.
Yes.
This is Bill Wilson. This is a question about that last time. I thought there was a stipulation or whatever and I wasn't a member of the search committee last time because I was told I wasn't eligible for that. But I did serve on a bunch of subcommittees. But what I was going to ask is, wasn't it the case that any staff, were you staff at that point, Ebony? I thought so, right?
Yes.
I thought there was some kind of stipulation that staff could not apply for that position.
No.
Only council members, that was it. Okay, yeah, okay, perfect.
So,
Yeah.
the cohort, we're saying this is in that you, cause I have, but no, it's not a lot. Okay, so Ebony, if we did the whole search, like, what would it take for you to keep your name in the hat?
I mean, I would keep my name in the hat, Jill. I mean, I feel like based on my qualifications, I'm very well qualified for this position.
I feel like you are.
I feel like I have great relationships with every person on the council, including the state reps that sit on the council. I feel like I am, the council is in a rebuilding phase, and I feel like relationships with legislators are going to have to be built. So I am actively, Amy and I were actively building relationships with legislators. I mean, I'm not where the previous executive director was, but I do feel like I have the qualities that an outside candidate won't have. I have inside knowledge about how the council works. Like I just said, I have relationships with everybody on the council, especially our community members. I feel like I have a strong background. And I've been here for 5 years. So yes, I've been here for 5 years. And so I do feel like I'm well qualified. So I will keep my name in the hat if you guys decide to do a search. I feel like I'm very well qualified, and like Phil said, I think that will come out, that will be shown. And I feel like I'm the best candidate for the job.
We need to remember that we need to, it's about the hiring process. We need to discuss that and keep it on track. So are there any other discussions about the hiring process from within or leading a search? Jill?
But now we have a motion on the floor, but can I make another motion? Or how does that work? Cause my idea's good, y'all. Everyone's gonna be like, yay, Jill.
No.
Renata?
Was it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, this is Renata Washington. I just wanted to.
Wait,
I'm sorry.
Jill, I'm sorry. No, Jill. As for the motion that Jill put through, we have to go ahead and finish the first motion before we can put another motion through. Right, so the motion was to, okay, is to recommend, the committee recommend the interim director, Ebony Haven, as the executive director of the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council. Is there any more discussion? Is there any other public comment?
Public comment. I really think that it'd be important to take a brief recess because I think that there was a misunderstanding and I.
The question and was
Yes.
waiting for the
Yeah,
answer.
and you
I was
didn't,
disappointed when you
Mhm.
started talking over and then she felt like her question wasn't answered. And so how can we vote when she was still asking that one question before she could vote?
Understand.
so I think.
I
we
made
should
the
recess.
floor, so that's why.
Yeah.
No, no, I understand, but I'm just.
We can take a brief recess if there's no objection. 5-minute recess.
Back at 9:20.
Yes.
Can't make a motion on another one. Or hearing.
Yeah, I'm done.
Right. Earlier Jill made a motion, but before the meeting will come to order, I'm sorry. Earlier Jill made a motion to add another motion, but let's go ahead and revisit the first one so we can see what our second motion is. Cool. So the first motion or recommendation that we have is to hire from within Ebony Haven as the Executive Director of Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council. Is there any more discussion about that? Any public comments?
Yeah, I think we need to remember we're state agency and that we need to be very transparent in moving forward. We already are under a lot of scrutiny as it is from the public, especially within the disabilities community, and that scrutiny has led to the council's public information, which while it is on the website, it is not on social media primarily. And it's been being posted on social media across the board in places that some of us just aren't on that to begin with. And it's been posted in a negative way in response to questioning filling council seats, for example, with demographic information, which is how we're supposed to be filling seats, and from what I understand anyway. We've had a lot of scrutiny, we've had a lot of dissension within the disabilities community, and then these are advocates. If we don't move forward with transparency and level of process, then we can basically shoot ourselves in the foot, and we're going to destroy any cohesiveness that we've worked to rebuild and achieve to move forward together. And that's just a concern we have in consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Webb. Any more public comments? Are you ready for the question? The question is on the recommendation for the hiring process of executive director that we hire from within interim director Ebony Haven as the executive director of the Louisiana Developmental Disability Council. If you are in favor of the motion to hire from within the interim director Ebony Haven as executive director of the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council. When your name is called, say yes. If you're opposed, say no. If you abstain, just say abstain. Ebony, can you please call the roll?
I'm gonna have Hannah.
Okay.
Ms. Avera? Ms. Banks?
Yes.
Dr. Baravicchio?
Abstain.
Ms. Bazil? Ms. Bayham?
Abstain.
Ms. Posey? Ms. Crane?
Abstain.
Ms. Hagan?
Abstain.
Ms. Hano?
No.
Ms. Harmon?
Yes.
Ms. Hymal? Ms. Jordan? Dr. McKee? Mr. Piontek? Ms. Richard?
Abstain.
Mr. Roca?
Abstain.
Ms. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Tarver?
No.
Mr. Taylor? Ms. Washington?
Yes.
Ms. Webb?
No.
Dr. Wilson?
No.
Ms. Wilmette?
Abstain.
Oh, that's right, they both named it, but,
Because you're hell.
Pull back too.
Abstain.
Is it me now? Or-
Lauren.
Did y'all hear her?
That's Lauren.
Okay, Lauren.
Yes.
Oh, yes, I got her. Sorry.
Well, I'm sorry, what, I'm just,
I was yes,
Yeah.
I think Ms.
Abstain.
Okay, I gotta know which one. So Ms. Tangela abstains and Ms. Lauren Womack, what did you say, Ms.? Yes. Ms. Lauren Womack, yes.
I want of you a doctor.
I have 5 yeas, 4 days.
Did you get married?
Oh, hi, Meredith.
Yes.
Ms. Jordan?
Yes.
So that's 6 yeas, 4 days. And 6 abstentions. The motion passes. Oh. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, wait.
The yeses have it and the recommendation is adopted. Thank you, everyone. Yes.
Okay. I know there was a question about the actual, was the council legally able to do this? The council has a memorandum of understanding with the Louisiana Department of Health. And it states that the council is responsible for hiring, firing, evaluating their executive director. So I also made sure that I reached out to our technical assistants, our federal technical assistants, ITAC. And Ms. Cheryl Matney did tell me to make sure that I contacted our HR to make sure that we were within state regulations, rules and regs. And because we have that MOU with LGH, you guys are well within your right to hire, fire, and evaluate your own executive director.
Well, I didn't know that, so I was hoping this would fail and I make a new motion and it was divine. But I am sorry that that I feel better. And there did no one, please forgive me.
There's no forgiveness necessary.
At all. Okay.
The next recommendation. Thank you. The next recommendation from the executive committee is regarding the salary for the executive director. The recommendation from the committee is to set the executive director's salary at $160,000. Is there any discussion from council members? Is there any public comment? Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Mary.
So tell us what the range is, how y'all came up with this amount.
Thank you. What's that one? Okay, what's that one? Okay, we took the average that we searched it, and in order for economic growth, and we also looked at other states. And in order to keep someone effectively doing their job as well as she has, and we took all that into consideration, and we're actually under what was suggested. So that's what we came up with.
So this is Phil, can you be more specific? Because that really didn't sort of answer the question. Very generic.
We pulled up some ratings from each state.
Okay, so when you say that, I think we want to know what, back to the lady's comment in the public section here. I think what some of the concerns that we have had on this council over the last 2 or 3 years that have created just a really difficult situation for getting work done is due to lack of transparency. And no one is questioning what you did or how you went about doing it, but in the spirit of being transparent, you can't just say we got some numbers from some states. I really can't vote on something like that.
Then we pull up
Yes, there you go.
the thing from NDAA, no, that's.
From ITAC.
We the one that we received is from ITech.
What's our
Can we have?
The council's technical assistants, federal technical
Geo.
assistants, yeah.
What back? Okay, here.
Can we pull the ITAC information up on the big screen and beneath?
Yes, Ms. Mary.
What was the what was the salary of Amy?
I don't know.
Amy's salary was $89,000.
This is Phil again. I'd like to make a motion. Is it possible to defer this until people have a chance to look at things and digest it? And then, you know, I don't know if we can get that done later this afternoon or actually defer it to the next quarterly meeting, but feels like a big decision to make with, I can't even see that stuff right there. You know, it feels like kind of rushed.
So is that a motion to postpone, Mr. Phil, for a later date?
Well, at least a motion to give people ample time to look at this and for Ebony, our new executive director, to kind of tell us how this impacts the budget. There's a lot of things here that just feel like too much coming too fast for me.
Will you show the Louisiana one?
And we took an average of the states. We looked at it, we met yesterday with the executive committee. And it wasn't a rush thing. So we took into account the economics, and her ability and a lot of other things. But if we need to go ahead and postpone at a later date, that would be fine. Lisa?
So you took an average of the top of the range or the bottom?
We did the state range, and then we also looked at other executive directors throughout the state.
Their actual salary.
Yes.
Throughout the state of what?
In Louisiana, if you Google it, we Googled it and looked at other directors in the state,
Other directors of what?
of other states. Yes.
Because you have to remember the top of the range. The top of the range is not.
Yeah.
Like I'm still in first quartile and I've been in my job for 5 years.
That's good.
Mr. Phil, could you restate your motion, please?
Before I do, I think there's still more discussion. Patty had her hand up and it looks like Mary too.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Patty.
Hi, I'm just asking if was there any consideration or y'all don't utilize like the state guidelines, like their specific criteria when we are take another position or promoted or move, there's certain guidelines through the HR, and I'm just wondering if they would be a resource for you guys to utilize.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Mary?
What, the budget, I guess that needs to be a discussion too. How would we afford, we paid 89,000, now we're paying 95, and you're suggesting 100 and, what was that, 189? 160. 160, that's a tremendous amount.
Brooke?
I would just like to address Ms. Tarver. Yesterday I did speak with staff. We did review the budget yesterday, and it's to my understanding that we have a pool of money that is set aside for salaries. And that money does sit year after year, and it's not being utilized for anything else but salaries. So we have a pool of money that is just sitting. We did choose a salary that was below the median after we did calculations from all of the councils, executive directors, and we came up with that one. And we did decide to go under the median range or the median that we came up with. And then we also wanted to make sure that everyone understands that now she will be an unclassified, or she will continue to be an unclassified employee, which means she's at will. So she could have this salary, but it's all based on her performance as well. It's not that she gets to keep, like she has to continuously perform appropriately to receive her salary. It's not that she's promised a position every year. So I do think that by Ebony having a higher salary, it will create a culture in the LADDC where she can bring her staff up with her, and we can create a forum well, she can bring her employees up and create like a sense of them being important and wanting to go and fight the good fight for us. So that was our belief in giving her that 160,000, is that if we start at the top, she can hire a great deputy director and that she can advocate for her other staff members.
Ms. Mary?
The part of the reason why we've struggled with and went through that process that we went through before for DD executive director, if you're offering $160,000 for a salary, you get a whole different group of people that would have applied for this job and would have been interested in it before, when we were offering less than $100,000. So I guess I'm just saying that salary seems out of our realm. And I would like to look at the budget. I would like to have somebody from the staff talk about it. What is this money reoccurring? Is just there right now? I think that this is a big impact on what, because then you can't go back. If you're hiring somebody after Ebony leaves, then you're starting them out way high for what this is. We are for the developmental disabilities world. I don't know if there's any directors making that amount of money in the state of Louisiana with all these other groups that are even coming close to that. And I don't know, but I just feel like that we've got to have some staff discussion about the budget in more detail.
Brooke?
I just want to, we all know that these states in the South, we're at the bottom for a reason. We pay people next to nothing and expect everything from them. So we can make a stance for someone who's already advocated for us for 5+ years and showed commitment to our mission and vision. I just also want to make the statement that when we say 160,000 salary, please take yourself out of the equation. Don't think about, oh, I don't get paid that. And I've been working somewhere for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. I feel like that is a lot of people's responses, is because they're comparing themselves and their salary to someone else and what we're offering. Because honestly, if you want to apply to the role, I encourage you to apply in 2 years after your term ends on the DD Council to the executive director position.
Our term doesn't end in 2 years.
No, I'm saying council members can apply for staff positions after 2 years. Yeah, so after 2 years, you're more than welcome to apply. But I think Louisiana, we're at the bottom because we don't pay. People go to other states. Why can't we keep a Louisiana person born and bred here and utilize our state's great applicants? That's.
Any other, I'm sorry, Ms. Lauren?
Can I make a motion?
Is one already?
No.
Yeah. Let me, Gio, I'm sorry, Miss
Lauren here.
Lauren, we can do the motion.
Oh, we can't do that?
Okay, how about motion already?
Okay, well, I just have then a question about it.
Okay.
Then a substitute motion. I just think that we need more information. And we have a lot on the agenda to digest and things like that. And I think maybe this is a discussion for another time, when we can get more information about it. So that's just my comment. I think we're all making good points, but in the effort of actually me personally to be able to vote, I think we need more information. I think we're gonna need something more concrete.
Jill, did you have something?
Yeah, after doing the research, I realized that in my opinion, the was executive director may have been severely lowballed. And then when we have our executive meeting, particularly the executive session, because of it was a person that I was in favor of, I tend to say, yeah, she's worth every penny. But now that I'm seeing these conversations in y'all, I can't say this enough. I'm a host that, like, I don't know anything about this kind of money, and I never will. But now that I'm in these discussions, I think something in between what was offered to the Ebony successor, and then what is being discussed now. But I'm a happy medium person, so I think if we could find a median, because you don't want the lowball someone, and I think of that for, and I wanted to use the word selfish, but almost selfish reasons, because if you go too low, you're gonna lose a good, or the potential of losing the right fit for the job. But if you go too high, then there's no room to grow. And Ms. Tarver said, or somebody said, that now the next person is like, okay, the minimum is how much? Like, oh, I can come into a job thinking she can go above 150, and I don't really understand how the money in our budget works and how we're able to play with it. But like, I mean, saying it alone is probably like common knowledge, but you don't want the high ball and you don't want the low ball. So.
Nicole.
Okay, so I was upon the executive committee when we were making decisions upon the last executive director salary. And it was a lot of discussion, and she was going to get paid more, but they had a lot of people that denied her getting paid more. And of course, it was the council, so you get votes. If the votes didn't go in favor of her getting a higher salary, she didn't get it, and she didn't get it. She didn't. So we were going to up her salary as far as getting it to where it needed to be, but the rest of the executive committee decided not to. So we got back in this predicament that we're in now, where we're in there where we're trying to offer somebody lower than what the other one had, and that's why we're in here this position now, because they did offer her something lower, they was trying to raise it, but it didn't get passed. So we're gonna do the same thing again and go through the same thing again, and then another 2 years, another executive director, and then we have to bring, I'm just saying.
Talking in terms.
Everybody I'm speaking. Everybody let everybody talk when they were speaking, so. My point is, I just Googled it. I just Googled it right now, how much the average executive director does. It's 147 to 188. That is in the middle. I'm just saying, you could Google it right now for yourselves. And that was the point of them coming to their meeting for the executive director. They spent time on it. They took days off. They took probably a day off of work. They did their research. That was the point of the meeting that they had. They did their research. All of them have stated that they talked to the finance department. They talked to the staff about the budget. Every single last person on the executive committee stated that. So we got to go again and do the same research again, or y'all just need to see the numbers? I'm just confused on what we're asking here, because they've already did the research.
Phil?
So we don't trust them in what they're done?
So,
Yes, sir.
Bill, so it's not a matter of not trusting. It's just a matter of not seeing what are we talking about? When you say that the average, did you say average?
Yeah, you can Google it.
But wait a second, I'm asking a question. When you say the average salary for an executive director, what does that mean? An executive director of what?
Of Louisiana, of a disability council. That's what I put in Google, what we are talking about. We're talking about her salary for a disability counselor.
In Louisiana.
Yeah, one, but we're talking about all of them.
So you're talking about average DD council and the entire US of A.
Right.
Okay, so when I saw that table, which was very small and a lot of information, too much certainly to digest, I need time to see the data and know the source of it so that I can make an informed decision. I appreciate that the council and the executive director or the executive council did research. That's their job. But to put things out without the rest of the council being able to understand what they're saying doesn't feel transparent. Look, if I don't want this to sound like I'm questioning people's morals, ethics, or whatever, but if we didn't learn anything from the last 3 or 4 years about how dysfunctional this council got because people weren't transparent, then we're repeating something that we can avoid very easily by slowing our roll, get it out there, make sure everyone understands. And, you know, I'm sorry, the Google machine to me isn't my ultimate source of information until I know what it's tied to. Okay, so that my original motion was, can we get information from the executive council that states that shows the data that they got and the source of it? That went to me something like, oh, we got it from Google, isn't telling me anything. Okay, that way, at the next council meeting, we could bring this back up and everyone will have plenty of time to digest the information, have a good, transparent, open discussion.
Can I?
Yes, Jim.
Okay, to answer your question, Dr. Phil, we got a little draft.
Sure.
Yes.
I don't think you know who you're talking to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We got a little graph. You can pull it up because I put in, but you're smarter than I. But from the, I know it's, I'm in your, it's from, is.
It's not in the, I'm gonna get Bridget to print it for everybody.
Okay.
Leo, did you want to make a motion to put?
I do want to make a motion. I thought I just did, but.
Well, I just wanted to make sure.
So I'm not good at wording it, so please,
So is there a motion to postpone the,
yes. Postpone the vote until the full council has had an opportunity to review the data and the sources of the data.
is there a second?
A second. Okay, Lauren Wilmer.
It is moved and second to postpone to the next meeting. Is there any discussion?
Can I just make?
Brooke?
I just want to make a comment that salary is a touchy subject in any regard, but I do want to make sure that everyone, like, we will never be able to touch this money. Like, we will not be able to say, oh, if we don't give, if we give Ebony 89,000, then we can do something else with the money that we work, the difference. We won't. It will just literally, the executive or council sat yesterday and we looked at the budget. It sits year after year after year. The previous director left unhappy with her salary. We have someone here that's been, have someone here that we can, that will accept the role, and we want to give her a competitive salary.
Okay, so if you go back to look on our budget for our council, because you have to take into account the budgets of all those other councils. You think New York has, I mean, you're looking across the nation and they have a much larger budget. So our budget last year, and this was ending on June the 30th of 2023. And so the salaries at that point, the budget balance was $109,086. So I guess I would like us to see from our own budget what this looks like and project it out. And also to say that we have been in a time where we have not had our retreats. We have not traveled. We have not gone, the other money that is in this budget that we have not used in what things that we have wanted to do in the past still needs to be part of this budget. So we've got to look within our means. Of course, I would expect that Ebony's salary is going to be commensurable to what her qualifications are. I just don't know that anybody would be at the level of $160,000 for this. The money that we have also, I guess we need to understand the budget pieces, because can't we use some of this money that we have for, like if we needed office supply, if there was something else that we needed. So I guess it's kind of like a understanding of the budget so that we can see if we start spending 90% of the budget on salaries, then that's going to limit other things that we can do, I guess. So, just to kind of see how things break down in our own budget with our own funding.
So we need to remember their motion was about postponing conversation to the next meeting, and it was seconded. If there's any comments, we need to talk about postponement until we discuss at the next meeting.
I don't think.
So we don't get to vote on our motion.
It was seconded. We get to vote.
No,
I don't think the wording captures my motion.
Can we read?
Don't get to vote on our motion from the executive council.
I just want to make sure that we include the piece about everybody receiving the data and the sources of the data. Before we vote, we don't come back here next time and not have received this, at least a month in advance to kind of digest this and understand it. I mean, I'm looking at a table right now, honestly, that was put on the screen, but the average base range for the entire country is 81,383. And top of range average is 119,410. There's disconnects here that don't make sense. So let us get the data. Let's be transparent. We want our executive director to get a commensurate salary and be compensated for her work and want to stay here and work until she retires, right? But I don't understand, someone referred to the budget. We have I run a center and have $10 million a year of budgets to manage, tiny compared to some of these state agencies here. But what I'm saying is, if you have a pot of money, you should be able to re-budget. You can't do it necessarily the same year, but if there's money, it certainly should be something that you talk to your project officer about. And if you're not spending it, they should allow you to re-budget.
But we also know that sometimes money is allocated for certain things and you can only use that money for certain
And so you
items.
re-budget your.
Exactly. So if we have money,
Re-budget
sometimes.
every single year.
Okay, let's just wait, hold on. Let's go on. Let's move to, are you ready for the question? And do we have any public comments before we move on the postponement? All right.
Yeah, I just a comment. I wasn't recognized.
Sorry.
I just wanted to mention, I think we're all united in the idea that we want to create a position that someone wants and is going to put us at the top of the heap nationally. I think I'm a very data-driven person when I make decisions. So I like to see data. And I guess what I was hearing was that Phil was suggesting that we get a one-pager that includes things like, if I were making this decision, I'd be looking in the civil service job descriptions and I'd say, what are the duties of these particular levels? What are the duties of this particular executive director? And I'd find one that kind of matches. They manage $3 million worth of budget. They have X number of employees. They manage this many different programs or serve this type of complex participants. And I would look for a job description in civil service that 2 or 3 of them that marry that. And I'd come back to the panel and say, these are the ranges of job payment ranges for similar duties. I also would look at the average of the southern states. That's something we get called to do quite a bit in the legislature when we're answering, what do other southern states do? Things like, how does it impact our budget? If we were to underspend, would we ask those budget dollars to be moved? Because you can move them. Difficult to get it out of salary someplace else, but you can. What would we do with those dollars? So I think what the team's asking for, my comment is a data-driven one-pager that kind of tells us all the work you all have done. And then I think people would be comfortable making a decision one way or the other.
As long as the
So-
one pager has the sources so that I can go and look at all of the data.
Hold on, Mr. Fields. So the question that we have right now is to postpone discussion of the executive director's salary into the January 2024 council meeting. Is that correct?
No. You do not have a statement in there about.
I can answer.
Okay, yeah, but she asked the question, so I'm trying to answer. You want to add that, Ebony, or do you want to?
To add a one page.
Want to add?
To add a source of where we received the information from. Is that correct?
I would like, I'm not married to the one pager. I think that's a great idea, Melinda, but my thing is that we have to have enough data to know that we're being
By data.
transparent. And that everybody has the wherewithal to look at those data and make a decision. So for me, if I have a source, great, I'll just go look at it there, but other people may want the actual table. So I feel like we should provide the data and the source.
To provide data for.
Okay. So the question is
That's what all this is about.
to postpone discussion of the executive director's salary into the January 2024 council meeting and provide data for salaries and budget with the sources provided. Is that correct?
Yeah, obviously,
Yeah.
but since this is going into a printed document, let's make it clear that we need to have that at least a month in advance so that everyone can review it. If we had it today, I think I would have a difficult time packing it all in, understanding it and
Okay.
voting.
So, Dr. Phil, can you look at the motion now? Does this capture what you?
Yeah, you want, could somebody read it so other people?
The question is to postpone discussion of the executive director's salary into the January 2024 council meeting and provide data for salaries and budget with the sources to council members prior to the January meeting. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, Jill?
I'm asking because I don't know what, can I add a word or no?
Sure.
Can we say after between the word members and the word prior, can we specifically in the words for purposes of transparency?
Is there any objection to this? No. So again, the question is to postpone discussion of the executive director's salary to the January 2024 council meeting and provide data for salaries and budget with the sources to council members for purposes of transparency prior to the January meeting. Is that correct? Okay. Are there any objections to the motion?
I just. That we can move forward. Is that the vote? Oh, no.
Okay. Are there any abstentions? Hearing no objections, the motion is approved.
I have a question for everybody. So I know the vote was to hire me as the executive director. I guess my question is, if you're not gonna determine salary until the January meeting, my start date wouldn't be until after the January meeting.
Yes, Phil?
I believe that you would continue in your interim role at the increased salary from
The deputy
the
director.
deputy.
Right.
The interim salary.
Okay.
Until so I don't know, Bambi, you have a lot of experience in government and so forth. When somebody in a state agency might better answer that question, but it seems like you would stay in an interim role until you have a salary.
So salary is discussed.
And she has to accept it. And we
Yeah, so then it has to stay at interim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So right now, Ebony would stay as the interim director until the January meeting for us to discuss salary. Okay. The last recommendation from the executive committee is the 2024 legislative kickoff advocacy agenda. The recommendation from the committee is to adopt the following issues. The first one is recurring funding for Families Helping Family Centers. The second is funding increase for direct support workers' pay raises. And the third is to eliminate flexible family funding. The wait list. Is there any discussion from council members? Is there any public comment? So, I'm ready for the question. The question is on if we accept that we recommend the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council accept the legislative kickoff advocacy recommendations from legislative kickoff and for the 2024 advocacy agenda to include the following: recurring funding for Families Helping Family Centers, funding increases for direct support workers' pay raises, and eliminate family flexible fund wait list.
I accept it.
If you are in favor of the motion, when your name is called, say yes. If you're opposed, say no. If you abstain, say abstain. Ebony, can you please call a roll?
Ms. Rivera, Ms. Banks,
Yes.
Ms. Banks, yes. Dr. Vera Vecchio. Dr. Vera Vecchio abstains. Ms. Brazil. Ms. Bayham.
Abstain.
Ms. Bayham abstains. Ms. Kosei. Ms. Crane.
Abstain.
Ms. Crane abstains. Ms. Hagan.
Abstain.
Ms. Hagan abstains. Ms. Hayno.
Yes.
Ms. Hayno, yes. Ms. Harmon.
Yes.
Ms. Harmon, yes. Ms. Heimel. Ms. Jordan. Dr. McKee. Mr. Piontek. Ms. Richard.
Abstain.
Ms. Richard abstains. Mr. Rocca.
Abstain.
Mr. Rocca abstains. Ms. Stewart.
Yes.
Ms. Stewart, yes. Ms. Tarver.
Yes.
Ms. Tarver, yes. Mr. Taylor. Ms. Washington.
Yes.
Ms. Washington, yes. Ms. Webb.
Abstain.
Ms. Webb abstains. Dr. Wilson.
Yes.
Dr. Wilson, yes. Ms. Womack. Well, Ms. Lauren Womack.
Yes.
Ms. Angela Womack.
Abstain.
Ms. Angela Womack abstains. Ms. Gun, well. I'm sorry. So we have eight. Yes,
Eight yeses.
No.
And no no's.
Yes.
The yeas have it. The yeses have it, and the recommendation is adopted. Okay. Thank you, members. The next item of business is the executive director's report. The chair recognizes Ebony Haven for the report.
The executive director's report is the gray report that's included in your packets. I'm going to share it on the screen. So I'm not going to read the entire report. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. And this report is for the July through September, that quarter. And this report includes activities from the previous executive director and myself. Just to highlight a couple of things, the report states that the budget report will include expenditures through August 2023 is included in the packet. However, I was able to include expenditures through September 2023. And I'll discuss the budget report. The council's action plan for federal fiscal year 24, FY 24 was submitted electronically to the Administration on Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities before the August 15th deadline. And the council received approval of their action plan for FY 24 on September 28th. The program performance report, or the PPR for the FY 23 action plan, is due at the end of the year on December 31st, 2023. A no-cost extension was requested by the council on August 22nd, 2023 for the expiring FY 22 grant due to having a significant amount of funding left on that grant. So the no-cost extension extends the project period for FY 22 for another 12 months through September 30th, 2024. And this allows the council additional time to ensure that those activities listed in the plan are completed. And it allows us more time to expend that funding. So the council received approval of the no-cost extension request for the 2022 grant on September 20th, 2023. And lastly, I don't know if she's here, but we did hire a new executive secretary or administrative assistant, Ms. Bridget Talley. I think most of you guys have met her already. And she's been a great addition to the DD Council staff. And that concludes the report.
Thank you, Ebony. Are there any questions from council members on the report? The report requires no action. Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Lauren, is it Lauren?
Yeah, when y'all went to Bessie about the to talk about the convicted felons inside the classroom. What was Bessie, what did Bessie say?
So we didn't go to Bessie. That was a conversation that we had with Meredith. And, we just wanted to bring it to their attention that there was concern. This was brought up at one of the community input meetings that I think was held in Region 9, if I'm not mistaken. And, we just basically advocated that there was a lot of concern about that language in that bill. But there was no action or anything, there was no resolve.
So we're gonna put this on something that we will continue to. I mean, I guess what's the next steps to make sure we make, sometimes we have to write a letter, just put it on record of this is our stance and,
These are our
be able to keep this on a watch list, I guess. So is that, I guess I'm asking what's gonna happen next.
So if the council would like to send a letter, that's something that we could draft. I guess you could need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we draft a letter to Bessie, stating our concerns about this, Act 392 language that would allow for a convicted felon inside the classroom, especially with students with disabilities.
So there is a motion. Oh, is there a second? Brooke or Jill? Yes. Jill and Brooke. Is there any debate on this? I'm sorry. It is moved in second to go ahead and draft a letter to Bessie in reference to the allowing convicted felons inside the classroom, students with disabilities. Is there any debate on this? Jill?
Karen did.
Yeah, that's what I would like to get her to speak on it, maybe.
Any public comment? The question is on, for the, Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council to draft a letter to Bessie about Act 392 of the 2023 legislative session, which would allow convicted felons inside the classroom.
No.
Are there any objections to the motion? Are there any abstentions? Hearing no objections, the motion is approved. Right. At this time, if there is no objection, the meeting will recess for 15 minutes. Hearing none, the meeting is at recess. It is now 10:20, and we will reconvene at 10:35.
We're having mine. I gotta ask around. Did I get the order?
The next item of business is the budget report. The chair recognizes Ebony Haven for the report.
And the budget report is included in your packets. The white sheet with like green, oh, you guys didn't get the color copy, sorry. I'm gonna share it on the screen. So that our viewers on YouTube can see it as well. Okay. So the budget report included in your packet includes the council's expenditures for the last quarter of the fiscal year, and that's July through September 2023. And there's just a few things that I want to review on the budget report. The previous executive director, the current chair, Christy Gonzalez, and the vice chair, Ms. Jill Hano, attended the National Association of Councils on Developmental Disabilities, our NACDD annual conference, and TA Institute, July 24th through the 27th. So those are the expenditures that you all see under the staff and council member out-of-state travel for August. Those are those expenditures. Additionally, the expenditures seen under the council meetings and in-state travel for September, that fee was for the diversity, equity, and inclusion and accessibility training that the council and council staff participated in. The council staff was trained in July, and the council was trained on the 13th and the 20th. And lastly, if you notice in the rent in July was doubled just due to the change in fiscal year. So we pay our rent on the state fiscal year. The state fiscal year ends in June. And so whenever there's a change, it's a delay in payments. So the building was delayed in getting paid. So that's why you see that the rent was doubled on the July payment. And this occurred last year as well. So are there any questions about the budget?
Oh, Bill?
So I always get a little confused because of the, is this budget reflect this only? So the grant comes on a federal fiscal year and but the budget is based on the first quarter report here. Is that for first quarter of the state fiscal year or the federal fiscal year?
Yeah, this is the first quarter of the state fiscal year.
So
because the budget is ran through the state, so we go on the state fiscal year.
July, August, September.
Yes.
Okay. So, all right, so I'm just gonna make notes, pertain to the discussion we'll have next time, I guess, but looking at what are the impacts of our, what does our budget look like if we are increasing salaries and so forth, right? Okay. That answered my question, thank you.
Are there any other questions from council members? Oh, Ms. Mary?
Since we're still just, or this just finished the first quarter, when you look at the travel, the 76% of the in-state staff travel, 96% of members out of state, and then 50% of the conference registration fees. Will we be able to move some money around in the budget for the upcoming months if that's needed, because that's wiped out a lot of it.
Yes, so whenever they explain the budget to me, they look at the total categories, so all the travel. So we can move money within those categories if we needed to. And I would just say, we just had a lot of travel this time around because they attended the conference. So Jill, Amy, and Christy all attended the conference, and those registration fees were just expensive. Plus flights, hotel rooms, food, all of that was included.
And I think we had seen that the travel, we would expect now that there will be more opportunities for you to go to conferences and do things now that we're not in the public health emergency. So you might be using more money for travel.
And I just want to see if I can catch you sometime before the end of the day, just to suggest some things you might be able to do budget wise with moving money.
Anyone else? Okay, the report requires no action and will be placed on file. The next item of business is our committee reports. The first report is from the membership committee. The chair recognizes Jill Hayno for the report.
Okay, thank you for. Just quickly, and because y'all, or I think y'all have a lot of information in your package, in this a chart that says to replace two for what position. So first of all, I'd like to thank everyone who was on the committee. Okay, so we talked on the Louisiana, the demographics versus the membership requirement by the feds according to the DD Act. And then we look at several different demographics and discuss areas where improvements can be made in our membership in regard to demographics and geographic location. We had, it was, and it's of all the time I've been on the membership committee, this was the most seats we had to fill at once. We had 7 seats to be filled, which included institutional seats, 5 parents or immediate relatives in there were there's terms ending in this November in February. So we reviewed all the applicants, which y'all can this, we broke down all the numbers who applied to what position. So we filled all the seats in, so our nonprofit seat is filled by Sherry Audie, which I don't. Do I have to read all the names? y'all see all the names. And then we discuss all our parent interviews. It was a lot of really good applicants, especially the immediate relatives. So the conversations were really good, and I believe we have some really good applicants, and y'all have the bios of all the members that are ready to be appointed by the governor. And that's my report, and
Motion.
so. Okay, so. Do I do it or the first? So these are out. So, we're gonna do it one by one. We have a motion on the floor to consider Sheree for our non-profit representative. The, so this, so.
Yeah, Christie will take over.
So, Christie, can you call the question?
Yes. So on behalf of the membership commit, this one, sorry. Because the motion is coming from a committee, it does not require a second. Is there any discussion from council members? Mary?
Yeah, do you know what nonprofit that she represents?
I
interviewed her. My name is Lauren Wilmette.
Thank you, Lauren.
I interviewed her. She was a very strong candidate. It's in hers is the letter. Yes, and I'm sorry, I'm on the spot right now because she might not have mentioned what it was, but it was for her
Her daughter.
daughter.
It's called Mina's Mission.
Mina's Mission, I'm sorry, yeah, Mina's Mission. And I really liked her as a candidate because she was doing a lot of work with representatives, local and state. She was working, she spoke to that, she was working with our lieutenant governor, I think he is Nungesser, on inclusive playgrounds and things like that. And she was just talking about like how, you know, St. Tammany didn't have a lot of places where people with disabilities, how he found it really challenging as both like a parent and like as her nonprofit, you know, of finding like a lot of inclusivity where she was living. So I just think she would be a strong candidate. She does have experience speaking to our state officials and things like that.
Any more discussion from council members? Is there any public comment? Are you ready for the question? And the question is on whether the membership committee recommends Sheree Aduli to fill the nonprofit representative seat on the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council. Are there any objections to this motion? Are there any abstentions? Hearing no objections, the motion is approved.
Okay, I have a lot more questions. Okay, so our next candidate is not Nicole Bates, so let me get another place. Okay, so now when it came to, the institutional facility seat that is a requirement by our DDA. We had a motion to recommend Miss Christina Bechtold.
On behalf of the membership, oh, sorry. Sorry, Jill. It's moved to, recommend Christina Bechtold to fill the institutional facility seat on the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council. It is not. Because the motion is coming from a committee, it does not require a second. Is there any discussion from council members? Is there any public comment? Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Julie.
I just had a question. I didn't see anything in the packet about Christina. So is she a person who lives in a facility or?
Yes.
To answer your question, so I interviewed Ms. Bechtold. I'm not sure why her information's not included in the packet, but she has a child at Pinecrest, which is a facility. With the interview, she was very passionate about her child at Pinecrest. And she was recommended to apply through her child's ombudsman. She has a military background. She is very passionate for advocating for her son and children in Pinecrest. And then she has had experience calling, writing with local senators and representatives already in her personal advocacy. And then she was not very familiar with, to be completely transparent with you all, she was not very familiar with the council and our purpose. But I did believe she had a strong capacity to be a system change advocate. And then she fully supported our DD council and our acts. And then she just demonstrated true leadership qualities in her personal life and advocacy skills with her son at Pinecrest. So that's a little bit about Christina Bechtold.
Any other discussions, Ms. Mary?
Yeah, does that meet the qualifications of being you could be a parent of somebody that's.
Yes.
That, okay.
Is there any public comment? Are you ready for the question? The question is on for the membership committee to recommend Christina Bechtold to fill the institutional facility seat on the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council. Are there any objections to the motion? Are there any abstentions? Hearing no objections, the motion is approved. Jill?
Okay. So Ebony, can I do all the parents at once? Okay. So then our final recommendation, we had a few parents and immediate relatives to fill positions to fill. So we have quite a few names to recommend. I know how to pronounce two of these names. So we have Cass Gowan. And then we have Missy Moore, Samantha Singletary, Warren, Melinda Paradone, and then finally, Mike Billings, and these four candidates are recommended to fill the parent, immediate, and relative seats opening up on the council.
Thank you, Jill. It is moved to recommend Pascal Wynn, Missy Moore, Samantha Singletary, Melinda Perrigan, and Michael Billings to fill the parents' immediate relative seats on the Louisiana Developmental Disability Council. Because this motion is coming from a committee, it does not require a second. Is there any discussion from council members? Ms. Mary?
Hey, I just wanted to find out, we try to also look across the state to have representation. And I'm one of the people who are rolling off. I'm from central part of the state in Alexandria. And this person, Samantha Singletary, I think is from the Lafayette area, St. Landry Parish. So I'm just wondering, was there anyone who was in the central Louisiana area that applied?
Unfortunately, no, we didn't have any applications from,
I reached out to our Families Helping Families person and she said that there was somebody that told her that they did submit an application.
I don't know if you feel comfortable,
Kim Cole.
because I have everyone that submitted an application, I have that pulled up. And she applied as a parent. I don't have her application.
Could I speak as well?
Yes, go ahead, Lauren.
And I just, I'm saying if I was at the membership, I'm a part of the membership committee. And if I was coming today, I'd have questions too, like, I would be like, look, objectively, our first priority is to fill our area locations. But I had 7 people to interview. We were only able to get 2 people to talk. Now, one was a special circumstance, which is not, is personal, but if they're not showing initiative to get in touch with me for an interview, how are we gonna have a quorum and move forward? You know, so that when I was, voting, and I think we all were, if I can speak to other council members, we were trying to weigh getting the demographics, the location, but 2, what people that are gonna participate. So it's threefold, but I just wanna, from being there, that we did due diligence. If that helps.
So I serve on the membership committee as well. I had 7 applicants to interview. I was able to interview 6 of the 7, along with Eric, who's not here today. We were given best practices to follow. They wanted 2 membership committee members to be in the interview if possible, reach out 3 times, per person. So with that being said, and we didn't have a lot of time to complete our interviews. I believe we had 2 weeks. And as you all know, this is a volunteer position, so we still have to work and do our interviews in the evening or weekends. So I just want to put that in y'all's mind when we were, because I don't feel like we were able to reach all of the people who applied. I just feel like we may have missed some good applicants by having, I guess, I just feel like we may have missed a good opportunity to have some great people on the council by not having enough time to interview. Because the 7th person did reach out, but it was after our membership meeting. And if they're a parent of a child with disabilities, I would just like to give them the opportunity to interview, but that wasn't the case, so.
Can I ask the chair, can I ask a motion or be?
Go ahead, Jill.
Okay. If, like Brooke said, she had an applicant reach out to her after the deadline. She couldn't interview a potentially great candidate because of the time box. Can we keep that person's application to look at for next cycle?
Yes, so the council keeps applications on file for a year.
Okay.
Rhonda, did you have something?
I did. I just wanted to add for what it's worth. We just went through our new selection process for our seat vacancies. And our parent seats, it's a wonderful problem to have. That so many parents want to be involved and want to serve. It's amazing. For what it's worth, some of these individuals applied for me, for our executive committee selection and did very well. And would have loved, to have these individuals. I would have accepted all of our parents, if I could have. But unfortunately, I understand how difficult it is for selection committees. Mine repeatedly told me how hard it was to make those decisions for their parent members. But for what it's worth, some of these individuals were also in our committee interviews and did phenomenal. I think they would be, and we do that too. We look at diversity, we look at region for our panel too, but just for, take it for what it's worth, these individuals did phenomenal for us too.
I just have a question, because I see like these are representing parents who are following up. Is there a certain number of self-advocates that we have and a certain number of parents that we have? Because it seems like we don't have as many self-advocates as we do parents. And so I'm just trying to better understand.
And you know me well. That information in my back pocket. But go on.
Well, I don't know if somebody, I just was trying to clarify if there's like a certain number of seats for parents and a certain number of seats for self-advocates, or how is that divided in the council?
So the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council has 17 community members. 7 of those members are self-advocates and 10 of those members are parents or immediate relatives.
Okay.
That's how it's broken down.
So when we were looking for the folks, there just wasn't any self-advocates rolling off.
Right.
At the time. Okay.
The only self-advocate rolling off.
Yeah. Okay.
So, the institution, no facility, so that had to be very specific.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Brooke?
My one question, I feel like I didn't get answered during our other meetings were I was just reviewing like the best practices for the interviewing of the applicants. Is there any criteria where interview must be, do they have to interview to be offered a position on the DD council?
Do they have to be interviewed, or do we go by just their application?
No, because there was one person that didn't, that we recommended that I couldn't get an interview with.
And Brooke, I went back and read the bylaws for, I don't think that it said that they had to be, well, let me go back. I don't want to misquote anything. I'll go back and look at them.
Thank you.
Oh, Christy.
Oh. It says, in the bylaws, in reference to council membership, it says persons interested in council membership must submit a completed application available from the council office or from the website. Applications can be mailed to the council office or submitted online through the website. The chair appoints a membership committee, and the committee reviews the applications, conducts interviews, and nominates candidates for council approval.
So what are we interpreting that to mean? They have to interview or they don't have to?
No. It says conducts an interview, whether we speak to them or Ebony, is that correct?
Well, it would be how you guys.
For the membership
Y'all
committee?
guidelines. Yeah, or, yeah, the membership
I'm
committee.
interpreting, yes. If it's in there, if it's stated in the bylaws that all of that has to happen, then all of that has to happen. If we're being transparent,
Yeah.
that issue got brought up before about following bylaws, we need to follow the bylaws. So the person that didn't get interviewed should not be recommended.
Wait, read what it said. That's not how
Oh, you didn't hear that? Okay.
I couldn't.
You probably
I'm
gotta
so
see it
visual
too, huh?
that I
I'm
like
seeing it here,
I
yeah.
have it, if you would like to read it. I have it right here.
We can pass it on.
It's at the top.
At the top of page 4.
I'm sorry.
Okay, there we go. We can find the thing.
One more. Amy. One more. Just for the people all the way to the back.
So it does say that we review the applications and do conduct an interview.
The must part is completed application. Then you appoint the committee and then they review applications, conduct interviews and nominates candidates. It doesn't have a must.
But we don't have to, like, we don't have to recommend somebody based on the interview. That's how I'm interpreting it. The must is the application, not the interview.
Interpretation.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we have discrepancies on what the interpretations is between the members.
Okay, so do we need to make? What do you think?
Can we make a motion?
Well, a motion is on the floor already,
Because it's in our bylaws.
so we have to discuss that one first.
Okay, yeah.
So the. So let's go ahead and finish the motion that's on the floor. And the motion is to. The motion is to recommend Pasquale Nguyen, Missy Moore, Samantha Singletary, Melinda Perrodin, and Michael Billings to fill the parents' immediate relative seats on the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council. Because the motion is coming from a committee, it does not require a second. Is there any discussion from the council members on this motion? Brooke?
I just want to make sure everyone knows that we did not interview Michael Billings. He wasn't able to, I don't know, can we discuss that portion?
Yeah.
So, we just weren't able to reach out or have a completed interview with him, so I just didn't feel comfortable recommending.
I reached out to the interview. I'm sorry, Brooke, to interrupt. I'm sorry. That was rude. I reached out to him. He responded in a text. He was going through very personal matter. I can read the part of the text that is not personal to the council if they would like that, just considering the, but he has experience. And when I voted or whatever in the committee, I was on the fence because he didn't do the interview, obviously. But I was convinced, given the discussion that we had, he had the experience. He had the, the ability and everything, and that he would be an asset to us.
Nicole?
I interviewed him also, and I have the same message that Ms. Lauren has. And even though we didn't interview him, he did mention some of the person, I'm not gonna mention that part, but he said he wasn't jumping through hoops to get on the council.
Wait, did you say you did interview him?
Yeah, no.
You
The
did a
same, we did it together.
Okay.
So our communication was together. So every time she texts, I saw the text, like we put it all together.
Okay.
So.
Right, Brooke?
Just to finish, I just wanted to say, I just wanted to give the same leniency to others that we were not able to interview. So I don't feel like that same privilege was given to my last person that I wasn't able to interview. So I just wanted to give that.
So let's do one. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is there any reason why we could not, if you feel like there was someone else who reached out who was interested in the position, not fill that, or is that counterproductive? I don't know. I'm just saying is if we wanted to wait until these two individuals who apparently are interested, but did not have the bandwidth to meet the deadline, could we vote on these others and hold that spot? It's just a suggestion.
Okay, I just wanted to just bring up, if we're looking at the demographics of the council, and that's included in this little form, you guys are way low on meals. The applicant that applied, unfortunately, he wasn't able to interview. However, he has previously been on the council. That was a discussion that was had. And he was the only male applicant that the council received. So I just want to make sure that you guys are keeping that in mind, that currently, the council for males, you're at 12.5%. You are supposed to mimic the state demographics, and the percentage for males is, I'm sorry, 49%. Y'all are at 12.5. So I just want everybody to keep those things in mind whenever we're looking at the federal requirements according to the DDA. We're trying to make sure that the council mimics the state demographics, and right now you don't.
Okay, Jill?
So as membership chair, I was able to have input on whether or not I let Mr. Billings' application be considered. In the only, and as I'm looking around, I see 4, 5 people, 6 people that can agree with 7 that can agree with me. The only reason why Mike was and was allowed to go through was because I have personal experience as him on the council. And I think I said this before at the committee meeting. No, I mentioned this to Ebony, but I'll say it again. Not if we don't allow Mike Billings on the council, we are doing this council a huge injustice. And Mike was not only a council member, he was an officer. Was he ever a member at large? You know everything.
He was on the executive committee. but I don't know which.
He was chair of the self-determination committee.
No, he was a chair, but I wasn't sure if he was member at large, or no, maybe it was shrug. So I do wanna do everything best practice. This is again, the only reason why I even considered him was because I knew what he was capable of. And Brooke, to your point, like, and I know there's gotta be a limit, but had I knew that you had someone that you were like a lot were impressed with, I would not have done anything unjust with one and not another. But I can't just be like, okay, everyone like applied in December. This lady doesn't look at deadlines or qualifications. So just to put that there at the committee meeting, I did vouch for Mr. Billings and Ed. And so I felt I needed to vouch for him again. Thank you.
So he was our only male applicant, okay. Brooke?
I just had one other question. I know that we want to mimic, you mentioned mimicking the state. When was the last time that we were in, when was the last time we were in compliance of mimicking the state? Yeah, I just want to bring that. So it's been a while, it seems like it's been a while since we've been in compliance. So what's another?
Yes, sir.
So I've only been on the council for about 2 years now, but I do recall I used to attend council meetings back in 2019, and I've been attending them since then. I seem to recall we had somebody come in from a national organization in 2019 and admonish us in 2019 for not meeting the national demographics and say, like 4 years ago, we were possibly running the risk of getting in trouble for not matching demographics. So that was what I recall from several years ago.
We were in there.
Phil?
So I applaud the council for doing a lot of work to kind of get us more in line with the demographics. I really I seriously doubt that, at least in my remaining years on the council, that we will ever be in compliance with the male demographic. And I don't think we'll get slapped around for that. I just think that making an effort to include men or recruit them, not so much include them, because I think that's already out there, is very positive, and we should take sort of an affirmative action kind of approach to men on the council. But I don't think it's something anybody should lose sleep about. I mean, I think the concern was more about people of color and people of different linguistic and cultural backgrounds. And I do think that the council has moved very positively to correct some of those shortcomings. But I don't know how many men we're going to actually be able to recruit for a volunteer position. And plus, fact of the matter is men are not as engaged in a lot of advocacy, and I'm not saying all men, but I mean just as a generality. So, I mean, I think I applaud the notion. I think that I've been on the council over the last 20 years, all but a few years, and I've known Michael, and I also would say everything everyone else has already said. If there's going to be an exception made, I would say he would be a good person to make the exception for. But don't lose sleep over not having 50% men. It's not gonna happen.
Any other discussion or questions? Brooke?
I just, I hate to keep making comments, but I just, how do we get to make exceptions for some things and then not other things? Like, we don't have a standard operating procedure for membership. It seems like we don't have like a standard operating procedure for, like, we have best practices to follow, sure. But I just don't agree with, I've never met Mike. I just don't feel comfortable.
Public comment? Maybe?
Yeah, so I worked with Mike. I kind of feel a little bit uncomfortable even having this discussion about a person who is so incredible. And I don't know if I'm gonna get in trouble for this, but Mike literally was going through what is my worst nightmare. So he didn't just not show up. It is like he was going through the worst experience any parent could go through. And Mike has been a parent for multiple kids with disabilities. Him and his wife and the children were Family of the Year last year for the Governor's Office of Disability Affairs, the Gold Awards. And so I don't think we should have exceptions. I think we should follow procedure as much as possible. But Mike has already done an interview through his service on this council that is recorded in our minutes and all that. So that could have been looked at given the situation that he was experiencing at the time. So I think it would be really a disappointment if the council did not get someone who has Mike's institutional knowledge and experience on the council as well as a parent. So I highly recommend Mike to be a member of the council.
I want to say also, objectively, he did respond before the deadline. He did respond to my request, our request for doing an interview through text. Did give his background, just said he did not want to speak over the phone. So it wasn't like a no show, no response kind of a thing. So I just want to make sure that we're clear on that too. And I don't know if I need to make a motion or some motion, if we could just maybe vote either move forward with these candidates or not.
There's already a motion on it.
Okay, then can we vote?
Yeah, so it's moved that we recommend Pasquale Nguyen, Missy Moore, Samantha Singletary, Belinda Perrodin, and Michael Billings to fill the parents' immediate relative seats on the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council. Are there any objections to this motion? Are there any abstentions? Hearing no objections, the motion is approved. Thank you, Jill.
Thank you for so I think we have a lot of good candidates, and I can't wait for them to get started. And that concludes my report, and thank y'all for y'all time. And I did briefly see, correct me if I'm wrong, damage, which I know you will. I did see his bio in the packet. Did I not? Okay.
All right, thank you, Jill. The next item of business is the report of the Act 378 Subcommittee. The chair recognizes Committee Chair Bambi Palazzolo for the report.
I'll be less passionate about this.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I can transition quick.
All right.
Okay. The Act 378 Subcommittee met yesterday. We did not have any recommendations for the council to consider. We did spend time reviewing the fiscal year 23 end of year data and fiscal year 24 first quarter data for programs for the Office for Citizens with Developmental Disabilities and Behavioral Health and the Office of Aging and Adult Services through the ARC of Louisiana. These reports can be found linked in our committee agenda on the council meetings website for you to review. They're also in your packet. No, they're not in your packet, they're linked. OCDD provided us with the end of the year individual and family support program priority request and expenditure report. We did look at the disparities within regions for the amount spent on certain services, specifically the personal care attendant and respite, as well as the vocational employment supports. 34% of all funding was spent on PCA respite services and 17% was spent on vocational employment supports. We asked the department to follow up with all the districts and authorities that have spent at least 10% points above or below these averages to discuss why they may be spending more or less than their peers. Ms. Hagan stated that she will also invite the developmental disabilities directors from each of those, each of the LGEs to the January meeting. When discussing the year-end report for the Consumer Care Resources Program, or CCR, we noticed Florida parishes had an extremely low expenditure rate for this program. Dr. Savicki with OBH stated a corrective action plan will be required and we'll be able to share more information at our next meeting about what steps Florida parishes will take to ensure families are served in that program efficiently. We also noticed that Northeast Delta had a lower expenditure rate, but they did spend all of their original funding. Their lowered rate was due to additional dollars that was not spent. So a corrective action will not be needed. Finally, after when reviewing the CCR report, we had a question about the expense from South Central Human Services Authority. They spent nearly $7,000 of their program dollars on marble composition books. Members felt that was a large amount of funding for notebooks, so OBH will follow up with clarity and report back to the subcommittee.
Thank you, Bambi. Are there any questions from council members on the report? Is there any public comment? The report requires no action and will be placed on file. The next item of business is the report of the Self-Determination Committee and Community Exclusion Committee. The chair recognizes Brooke Stewart for the report.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'll go ahead and read the Self-Determination and Community Inclusion Committee report. The Self-Determination and Community Inclusion Committee met yesterday and does not have any recommendations to present to the council. We received a lot of great updates from the Office for Citizens with Developmental Disabilities, or OCDD, Department of Health and Medicaid. A lot of the information shared is included in their agency reports and our committee-specific report linked in the agenda. I encourage you to take a look at those reports. A lot of the information we discussed will also be included in the agency report coming up later. So I'll let those agency reps speak to those things. The committee did receive an update from on Families Helping Families of New Orleans as a follow-up to our discussions at the last meeting. One thing I did want to mention was at our last council meeting, you voted to use the additional funding the center receives from the council to help pay any debts owed. Council staff was informed by LDH Legal this was not an allowed use of state general funds. So the executive committee met in August to discuss. They decided to withhold the additional funding from FHF NOLA this year, essentially halving the amount of funding they received from the council as part of their probationary status. That funding was split amongst the remaining centers. FHF NOLA has been taking steps to address concerns. An internal financial assessment was completed to identify areas of need. New auditors and accountants were hired. The bookkeeper was let go and a new firm acquired. Center has realigned its financial goals and has developed a more accurate and realistic budget based on their finances. They have implemented various measures to cut costs and reduce unnecessary expenses while actively exploring new revenue generating opportunities. They have submitted monthly financial statements to show positive cash flow and have established a financial committee within the board to review financial performance and create action plans more regularly. Employee advances were discontinued, and the employee that had unpaid taxes has worked out a plan with the IRS to repay those taxes. The center will not face any penalties for this mishap. We also found out that the executive director is planning to resign at the end of December. So the board is working on getting an interim director until a new ED is hired. The center also reported continued efforts after the last meeting to meet with the concerned parents that filed a complaint with funders but have received zero response from the group. If you are interested in seeing all the summaries, reports, and policies submitted to our committee by FHF NOLA, you can find them linked in our committee agenda. Finally, we discussed some of our contractual activities in goal 1 and 2 of the council's fiscal year 23 action plan. I encourage you all to review the status update review the status update document that we receive quarterly for specific updates on each activity and any of the documents linked in our committee agenda.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council members on the report? Yes, Ms. Mary?
Hey, I thought that the person was the person supposed to be here? It seemed like there was a question yesterday and we didn't answer it, but now I don't know what the question was. Do you remember, Brenton?
Yes, so the director was supposed to be here yesterday, and then she was hoping that she could make it today. She's having some medical issues, and so she wasn't able to make it. So that's why we have no one here from the center.
Is there any public comment? The report requires no action and will be placed on file. The next item of business is the report of the Education Employment Committee. The chair recognizes Ms. Renata Washington for the report.
All right, hello, everyone. The Education and Employment Committee met on yesterday and does not have any recommendations to present to the council. We received a lot of great updates from the Louisiana Rehabilitative Services, also known as LRS, and the Louisiana Department of Education. Melissa Bayham with Louisiana Rehabilitation Services was not able to attend the meeting on yesterday, but Stacy Marbs came from LRS and provided information to the committee. During the July 2023 meeting, the committee requested an official copy of the MOU between LRS and the Louisiana Department of Education. Unfortunately, Ms. Marbs stated that the legal department within LRS had to be contacted regarding sharing the MOU between LRS and LDOE. Therefore, the MOU was not shared at this meeting, but the committee requested an update from Melissa Bayham at the next meeting in January 2024. Ms. Stacy Marbs also provided the committee with information requested during the July quarterly meeting regarding the third-party cooperative arrangements at high schools, including the assignments and contacts. TPCA are contracts between the school district and LRS to provide pre-employment transition services, or pre-ETS, starting at age 16 to 22. Ms. Stacy provided the council with a summary list from each region and captured the number of public and non-public high schools in each district with a TPCA or a fee-for-service vendor attached to the school. Ms. Stacy also presented data on each region, and copies of the data were made and distributed to the committee since the data was not provided before the meeting. The committee expressed concern that some schools did not have TPCAs or fee-for-service vendors attached to their school. However, Ms. Stacy stated that even if a school did not have a TPCA or vendor listed, there was still an LRS counselor assigned to all of the schools, and those counselors can provide the transition services. The committee asked Ms. Stacy if the LRS counselors' contact information could be shared, but she would have to check with Ms. Bayham. Great information on yesterday. The committee also received an update for the Louisiana Department of Education from Meredith Jordan. Ms. Jordan shared that the special education directors met on October 17th, and they invited LRS out to talk about transition service and the options available to ensure that directors are aware of TPCAs, and that the information is getting down to the schools about services available after high school, including the paycheck program. Ms. Jordan shared that the information was very well received. Ms. Jordan also informed the committee that the school districts have spent just over 1 million of the 8 million that was allocated for cameras in special education classrooms during the 2022 legislative session. That amount may increase this year as more parent requests are received. The committee will continue to monitor and receive information on cameras quarterly. It was also requested at the July meeting that the committee be provided discipline data relative to students with disabilities. And Ms. Jordan provided information on student discipline from a 3-year time period. That was 2019 to 2022 on each school system in Louisiana. They will also be gathering data from the 2022-2023 school year to distribute to the committee when available. We encourage everyone to take a look at the data that is linked in the committee agenda. Due to the data suppression rules, actual data could not be provided for discipline if it was less than 5%. It was noted that there is a drastic dip in suspensions or discipline during the 2020-2021 school year due to the pandemic and many students still participating in virtual instruction. Ms. Jordan also highlighted that when looking at the data by disability category, those with other health impairments and specific learning disabilities had higher numbers of suspension and expulsions and could be due to behavior not relating to the disability. It has been reported that behaviors have increased since the pandemic, and the department is looking more into how they can support schools with behavior support plans. Dr. Phil Wilson also informed the committee that OHI, which is other health impairments and specific learning disabilities, are also categories vary when trying to get diagnosed because they can't pinpoint the diagnosis. A lot of kids with autism are misdiagnosed, and we should really look more into correct diagnosis. The Human Development Center has made a commitment to look at fetal alcohol spectrum disorders due to the high prevalence, 1 out of 20, and fetal alcohol spectrum disorder being the leading cause of developmental disabilities in the world. These kids are getting suspended from school because they are being misdiagnosed and not getting the correct interventions. So Dr. Wilson asked the council to collaborate on the efforts to bring more awareness of this disorder. The committee did raise concern on the large number of disciplinary removals included in the data, but Meredith stated that the number could be high because it counts every removal and the same student may be counted multiple times. However, the department is going to look into training all teachers regarding discipline rules. Lastly, Meredith Jordan informed the committee that the department is hiring a new state ombudsman to assist families with grievances and dispute resolution. We discussed some of our contractual activities in goal 3 of the council's action plan. And I encourage you all to review the status update document that we receive quarterly for specific updates on each activity and any documents linked in our committee agenda. The committee further discussed the state ombudsman that the LDOE plans to hire and expressed concern over having only one ombudsman. The committee would like Meredith to discuss the special education advisory councils on the next agenda in January 2024. There were a lot of great dialogue on yesterday shared in this committee meeting. And I encourage everyone to read the summary once it is posted or watch the entire meeting on the council's YouTube channel.
Thank you, Renata. Are there any questions from council members on the report?
Not a question, but more of a statement. I feel like I was misunderstood yesterday. I did not mean that we need two ombudsmen. Parents already do not trust the Louisiana Department of Education with their complaints. After the recent audit revealed, most of them were left unaddressed and unacknowledged. The ombudsman role created to address their grievances needs to be filled via contract with an outside entity that best fit the needs of these families. I would like to make a motion to add this to the legislative agenda under education.
So the question is on,
Yeah.
So the question is on whether we have a motion about getting an outside source. Yes, ma'am. Correct, Vivian, for the ombudsman and send it to legislative session. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
I second it.
We've moved in second. So go ahead and. Okay. Okay. So it is moved in second to add an outside source for the Department of Education, Louisiana Department of Education Ombudsman, and add this item to the 2024 legislative advocacy agenda under education.
Did that capture what you're trying to, what the motion was, Vivian?
Yeah, for next session.
Oh, for next session, 2025?
This session.
This.
Oh, for the 2024 legislative session.
Okay. Is there any debate? Jill?
I'm not debating, I have a question, was that discussed at the Lacan kickoff or from the community input meeting? Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
And yes, parents, and this actually happened shortly thereafter in the legislative community. Input meetings were held. However, there's a lot of input from parents. It's available widely online that speak to that effect, and the LACAN members have been contacted by members regarding this issue specifically. So it is actually very important to the parents that we address this because they do not have a lot of trust in LDO to once again tackle handling these complaints, and that's good for the issues. And couple that with the way it was ignored originally per the report of the audit, they don't have much faith in that they would even properly a second. And they would prefer that an outside contractor be arranged to handle that and tackle that task.
Any public comment?
Thank you.
Are you ready for the question? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm not sure if the wording is clear. But thank you for clarifying that, but to outside source. So what what the motion is asking is.
The, to have the ombudsman, be hired from an outside source.
Yeah, but somehow that seems very ambiguous the way it's worded. I don't know, somebody else could help with the wording there.
Would you
But
prefer entity? Or would we need to get a contract, like?
Have the ombudsman investigator to contract from an outside, hire a contract. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like it,
Yeah.
but I'm not trying to put words into the motion.
Just additional information. So we had conversation about this. I'm sure everyone is familiar with the audit report that was released. I would abstain from this, neither pro or against. But I will say, to be clear, in the report, there were 61 formal written signed complaints per law. All of those were addressed by the department. There is no excuse for the 9 or 10 emails that were received by parents that didn't receive a response or that proof couldn't be generated. There's no excuse. Every single parent in our state, in our communities, deserves responsiveness, deserves the benefits that come with those procedural safeguards and the rights for those families. It does sadden me that there are people who don't trust the department. I get it. I'm here to help. I want to build that. I want that for us and for our parents. So I just wanted to put that in I want us to have trust, and there is work to be done to build that trust. Part of that starts with ensuring that every parent gets a response when they email our inbox. I don't disagree. I completely agree with that, Vivian. I'll also say, whether this moves forward or not. So we have this position, we're under interviews. I would expect this person to be selected very quickly. Second, we also have in our state, another really new position is, there is another child ombudsman. I forget which office that is in. But there's another child ombudsman position already in our state. So just thinking about, if the department has created a position, is about to hire a position, how this move forward, what happens with that, or how that transition would happen, but would be up to the powers that be. But just want to certainly put that out there.
Any other? Ms. Mary?
That's me again. Okay, so if we put this, if we're saying that we want it to be on the Developmental Disabilities Council for our legislative agenda, then from the staff perspective, we need to understand what that entails, because you don't just say it, you've got to have like all the fact papers, you've got to have somebody who's taken the lead on it. So I guess I just want to see y'all's, how that would work.
So just based off what Meredith said, they are in the hiring process. They're doing interviews. We don't have any information to even give to the LaCan leaders and the FHF directors to even go out on legislative visits for them to find a legislator to, number one, take this on and then get traction from the LaCan members and the other legislators. So I don't know if this is a realistic ask or an addition to the advocacy agenda, just because like you just said, we take time to research things. We have to get information from the departments. And then we have to put together fact sheets that we send out and get comments on, and feedback before we actually use those fact sheets. So if they're already in the hiring process, there's no time.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know that was the whole intel of this. I'm gonna take can I take my second back? Can I retract that? I'm just asking.
Really, there's no need if the motion isn't withdrawn.
Oh, okay,
You just vote it down if you.
okay.
Right. Any other comments or questions?
one last thing, and I'll say, you know, I feel like everybody agrees this support's needed for our families, and just want to be clear, the department didn't have any, we had to take steps for what we could do and what we could control. We didn't have any ability to say, hey, you know, this entity or that entity, you hire this position. And so we kind of did what we felt like was in our control, a step forward. And a recommendation that we talked with the auditors at length about. And with the other individual that we've contracted with to review our dispute resolution process as well. That was something that came out as a recommendation, was for us to hire a special education on budget. So I didn't want this group to think that, you know, we said, we just came up with a step to take, that there was other input around that too, and a suggestion for that.
Yeah, I don't think anybody has an objection with the department paying for the position. That's great. I think the concern, as we talked about last night in our committee meeting, is kind of mirroring what was I'm sorry, I don't know names, but what's your name?
My name is Mimi Webb. Region 7. My name is Mimi Webb.
Mimi,
I'm the
yes,
latest
gotcha.
Region 7.
So just mirroring what Mimi had said a minute ago. It's that whole transparency and trust issue.
Yeah.
So as we talked in our committee meeting yesterday, I also suggested that, you know, if there's a way, even if a person's hired, before they begin doing their job, if there's a way to, you know, move that person under another independent organization so that parents have a level of trust that apparently they don't have right now, then it's going to make the purpose for doing this, you know, more functional. You know, it's like if no one calls because they say, oh, we can't call the people that are policing the, you know, the hen watching the fox watching the hen house thing, then, you know, it doesn't make sense. So an organization like DRLA or another type of organization that has an advocacy, legal, blah, 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 sort of a background might be something parents would actually feel more comfortable with. Again, I applaud the department for attempting to do something that really needed to be done a long time ago, but the trust, I think, is already broken. So it might not be very effective.
So the question that we have is for the Department of Education State Ombudsman to be hired from an outside source other than LDOE, and add this item to the council's 2024 legislative advocacy agenda. Under education, made by council members Vivian Webb and seconded by Nicole Banks. Are there any objections to this motion? Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Mary?
No.
Yes. Okay. Are there, if there is an objection, so we would take a roll call vote. If you're in favor of the motion to have the Department of Ed, State Ombudsman be hired from an outside source other than LDOE, and add this item to the council's 2024 legislative advocacy agenda under education. When your name is called, if you're in favor of the motion, when your name is called, say yes. If you're opposed, say no. If you abstain, say abstain. Ebony, please call roll.
Ms. Avera, Ms. Banks,
No.
Ms. Banks, no. Dr. Vera Vecchio,
Abstain.
Dr. Vera Vecchio abstains. Ms. Bazil, Ms. Bayham,
Abstain.
Ms. Bayham abstains. Ms. Kosei, Ms. Crane,
Abstain.
Ms. Crane abstains. Ms. Hagan,
No.
Ms. Hagan, no. Ms. Harmon,
No.
Ms. Harmon, no. Ms. Imel, Ms. Hano, Ms. Hano abstains. Ms. Jordan,
Abstain?
Ms. Jordan abstained. Dr. McKee, Mr. Piantek, Ms. Richard,
Abstain.
Ms. Richard abstains, Mr. Rocca,
Abstain.
Mr. Rocca abstains, Ms. Stewart,
No.
Ms. Stewart, no, Ms. Tarver,
No.
Ms. Tarver, no, Mr. Taylor, Ms. Washington,
No.
Ms. Washington, no, Ms. Webb,
Yes.
Ms. Webb, yes, Dr. Wilson,
Yes.
Dr. Wilson, yes, Ms. Lauren Womack,
Abstain.
Ms. Lauren Womack abstains, Ms. Tangela Womack,
Abstain.
Tangela Womack abstains. And that's 2 yeses. 2 yeses, 6 noes, and 8 abstentions.
The noes have it and the motion is adopted, not fails, or not adopted, fails. Okay. If there is no objection, the meeting will recess for lunch.
Objection. Sorry. Can we-
No lunch.
Sorry. Okay, Lauren. Can we, maybe have a motion to put this on the, I don't know if this is possible. Put this on the agenda for the next council meeting, this topic. Yeah, we can revisit that.
Just because of when the legislature, I mean,
It's in.
kind of hard.
It needs a second.
I second.
So Lauren, I think it may be more appropriate to go to the Education and Employment Committee first.
Okay,
And
that's
then,
fine.
you know,
I'll
if the
retract
full
my
council
motion.
want. No, you don't have to retract it. I'll just
Okay.
add it, I'll add that it'll go to the we'll add it to the agenda for the Education and
Yes.
Employment, January meeting.
Thank you.
Question,
Yes, Phil.
could it not go to the executive council?
The Executive Committee.
Yeah, it feels like if it goes to the education and employment, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just-
I mean, that committee has the power to make motions,
Yeah.
and then send them to the full council.
That I feel like the EE council would know more about this than the executive committee. That's why I'm staying, because I have no earthly idea what y'all are saying.
Second.
Yeah, there was a second.
And
It was Vivian. Vivian, you had second?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so it is moved in second to add this item to the agenda for the January 2024 Education Employment Committee meeting. Right. Are there any questions? Any public comment? Are there any objections to the motion? Are there any abstentions? Hearing no objections, the motion is approved. If there is no objection, since it is now 12:03, the meeting will recess for lunch.
Sorry. I don't really like them.
Meeting is at recess. It is now 12:03 and we will reconvene at 1:03.
No, but I want to make sure we, I mean, in January. I'm
Myself.